Hi, Michael Yardney here and welcome to another Ask Michael Anything video. Recently I got an email from Daniel who asks, "Hi Michael, I've seen couples featured in the magazines who've accumulated large property portfolios, but I seem to have trouble getting finance for my next property. How do you keep buying property every year if you've got an average income?" Now that's a really good question, and I know what you're coming That's a really good question. I know where you're coming from because I get the same magazines and I get the same emails in my inbox and they say you can buy 10 properties in 10 minutes or 7 properties in 7 years. And you wonder how can you do it with the banks currently making it very difficult for investors, particularly if they've got substantial portfolios, to be able to get more loans because they're treating serviceability much stricter. Well, first of all, let me explain that I also get emails about the Easter Bunny and Father Christmas. So just because people say it happens, it doesn't happen often. At Metropole, we've got offices in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane and see hundreds and hundreds of successful investors and potential investors, and very few have accumulated 8, 9, 10 properties. In fact, the statistics show that less than 1% of investors owns more than 6 properties. Interestingly, a lot of my clients do own more than 6 properties, but high-grade properties. The ones you see in the magazine are often young people who bought multiple properties in secondary locations, sometimes with family money, sometimes with overseas money. And interestingly, we also see them as clients of Metropole or potential clients because they come in and they're stuck and they've suddenly realised that while owning a lot of properties, they haven't gone up in value. They've missed out the significant capital growth that's happening in our big capital cities because they're bought in secondary locations. And sometimes they've got cash flow positive properties. Let me explain that when we try and unravel that because they want to now buy better properties, it takes a long, long time, sometimes years, because it's so hard to sell those properties at the moment. And it's only going to get harder as interest rates eventually rise and secondary locations are going to suffer more. It's also going to mean that the gap between those secondary properties and better located properties is only going to increase. So my recommendation to you is that you should only own a smaller group of investment grade properties than a large portfolio of secondary properties. I'd rather own one Westfield shopping centre than 20, 50, 40 other properties. So make yourself attractive to the banks, borrow what you can, and remember that property investment is lumpy. So you buy a property and then you're going to have to hibernate, and you come back a year later and see, can you buy another one, can't you? If the finance allows it, you will buy another one, and if it doesn't, you just hibernate for another year or two, and then you come back again. You'll probably buy one and not anything for a couple of years, then you'll buy another one, and then nothing for a few more years, and then maybe buy 3 or 4. It takes the average property investor 30 years to become financially independent. You're not going to get a huge portfolio overnight. Now, why 30 years? Because the majority of them get it wrong the first 8 or 10 years, then they've got to unravel it for 5 or 6 years, and then it takes 2 good property cycles to become financially independent. Don't be tempted to go off and buy a cash flow positive property thinking it's going to get you more money and you're going to be able to borrow more. No, because you'll never get the deposit for the next property because cash flow positive properties don't grow well, and the extra $10, $20, $30 a week positive cash flow you get from it isn't going to be enough to increase the serviceability to buy more properties. So admire successful investors, don't be jealous of them. If somebody else can do it, so can you. But be careful who you admire and be careful who you model. And don't necessarily model people who bought large portfolios because they're often, frequently, in fact usually underperforming portfolios. Thanks for the question.